We come from places where the headlines don't tell the whole story, where the truth, if we're being honest, can feel just out of reach. Because in our neighborhoods, policy isn't some abstract idea. It's rent, it's food on the table, it's safety, it's survival. And yet, too many voices get filtered out. Too many facts get buried underneath noise, narratives, and distractions. That's exactly why changing trends and times exist to bring clarity where confusion has been normalized. This is a news podcast grounded in real life, rooted in the lived experiences of the underserved, the overlooked, the politically impacted. No spin, no distractions, just facts, real context, and the conversations that actually matter to our communities. Because when information is incomplete, the cost isn't shared equally. It's paid by the people already carrying the heaviest weight. So we break it down. What's happening, who it affects, and why it matters right now. We ask the questions others avoid, and we follow the truth wherever it leads. This isn't about telling you what to think. It's about making sure you have everything you need to decide for yourself. And if you've ever felt unheard, overlooked, or misrepresented, just know this space was built with you in mind. So let's bring the facts into the open, and let's bring your voice into the conversation. Tune into changing trends and times, and stay informed on what impacts.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Changing Trends and Times, where we get the news in real time and we tell you the things that are happening that are going to best benefit you. I'm your host, Charles King, and I am going to start today's show with a Black reflection, a Black history reflection of the Tuskegee Airmen. Today, we honor the extraordinary legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen, the first Black military aviators in the United States Armed Forces, men who fought two battles at once: the war overseas and the war against racism at home. Trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama, these pilots, navigators, bombarders, mechanics, and support crews shattered every stereotype placed before them. They flew more than 15,000 sorties, protected American bombers with unmatched precision, and earned over 150 distinguished flying crosses. But their greatest victory wasn't just the skies, it was improving beyond any doubt that excellence has no color and courage has no boundaries. The Tuskegee Airmen forced America to confront its contradictions. They showed a segregated nation what Black brilliance looked like when given the chance to soar. Their legacy is not just aviation in history, it is American history. So as we get ready to go into the show, let me start the show out this way. I want to welcome you all to Changing Trends and Times, where we break down the stories shaping our nation and our world with clarity, truth, and a commitment to keeping our communities informed. We are living in a moment where the headlines are heavy, the stakes are high, and the pace of change is relentless. From economic warnings, signs, and global tension, from political shifts to cultural reckoning, the world is moving as fast as we're here to make sense of it. Today's broadcast brings together the stories that matter: the economy, world affairs, U.S. politics, and the voices often overlooked in the national conversation. Let's get into the news. So our first stories that we're going to be going through. They're going to be about, we're going to give you guys some updates on economics and the markets. One of the stories that has kicked off, that's got a lot of people on the hair trigger, is we're talking about Warren Buffett. Buffett indicator raises fears over the U.S. economy. Analysts report that the Buffett indicator, a measure comparing total stock market value to GDP, has reached historical high levels. Elevated readings often signal market overvaluation, prompting concerns about potential corrections and long-term economic instability. Well, this is something that was mentioned. I think last week we mentioned this, where Warren Buffett, being the owner of Berkshire Hathaway, has cashed in an enormous amount of stock. Excuse me. He has cashed in an enormous amount of stock that's valued at billions of dollars. So what this means is that with him doing this, and people take his words as law and rule when it comes to the markets and the economics, that something's on the horizon. Now, when we think about this, and what I want you guys to get from this is that someone like Warren Buffett that actually takes that much stock that he cashed in, and when he cashed that stock in, and with that stock being in billions of dollars, and he flipped it over into Bitcoin, that's a sign for an enormous amount of people that something's brewing, something's on the horizon, and that people need to start thinking about the US dollar being extinct. Now, that may seem like a loud cry for an enormous amount of people because, nothing has happened yet that would make us think that this is the case. But what I will say to you is that when something like this happens, this is something that anybody that's doing anything that's dealing with the market or even with your money in general, you need to think as to how you're going to plan and what currency is going to be looking like. Now there are many people that have already started the Bitcoin story. Actually, on America in Black and White this week, we had a guest that actually was talking about the Bitcoin and how Bitcoin has been around for so long, but has always been the stabilizer, that is in the markets. Now, here in America, our economy, especially since this war with Iran, has taken on many, many things. And what we're finding out, what we're finding out as time is going on is that, the petrodollar is falling and continuously falling. So we really don't know what's the stability of that. Now, we know our economy is unstable because, America is $36 trillion in debt. So that in itself makes this all unstable. Now, when it's all said and done, people need to be prepared for in-case scenarios. And I do think that, as they call it, the Buffett indicator, this is one of those things that's saying to you that it is time, that that people start planning for just in case situations. Now, again, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do and what not to do. But what I do want you to know is that you should be looking at signs and trends that are happening now in the market that's going to best benefit you going forward. And you know what you need to do in order to make plans and arrangements for your family. Now, to get further into this, because there's two other stories that popped out this week as well, that are giving some credence to the Warren Buffett story. The first one is Professor Scott Galloway warns of a potential $10 trillion market wipeout. Rising oil prices and geopolitical tensions have led some analysts to warn of a possible global market contraction. The concern centers on energy shocks, inflationary pressure, and the fragility of global supply chains. So let's break that down. Okay, when they say about the energy shocks, what they're talking about is the oil and the battle with Iran in the Middle East in the Straits of Hormuz. They're also, when they talk about inflationary pressure, they're talking about the rising prices that are just getting higher and higher every day, because with our economy being as unstable as it is, it's not going to be able to maintain this kind of pressure for a long period of time. And they're talking about fragility of global supply chains. All the supply chains, since the Straits of Hormuz has been in this situation, has been affected, but it has been affected in the most negative way. Now, let's break that down. And what we're talking about is that when you have several supply chains that rely on several products, many products, and they're all coming in imports from other parts of the world that's coming to America. Okay? Now, we all are involved in trade. That's all countries. So even though we're involved in this trade, what's happening here in America is that we're having a contraction of our economy, because our economy figures so much into the stability of what's happening with the supply chain shipments that have to come across the water to America. Now, with Iran holding all of this at a standstill, now what they're saying is that they are refusing to let U.S. ships come through. Now, right now, we know that they're supposed to be having these talks over in Pakistan in order to get this situated, but that's not stable yet. So, but getting back to this. So when we talk about the rising oil, the oil is what's causing more of the contraction to the American economy. And so with that not being able to come through, and all of these countries have to purchase their oil with US dollars, that's the stabilizer for our market. So now with Iran shutting that down and keeping that at a standstill, it has backed up the American economy hand over hand, like just enormous amount of flow that's being backed up. Okay, and there's nothing we can do about that, but this is how these markets work, and that's the main thing that's really affecting our economy. And so as we talk about the inflationary pressure, you see, as this continues to happen via the Straits of Hormuz, our prices are going to continue to rise, because everything that happens here in our economy depends upon all of those products that's being shipped across the water to get here. Now, another story that's backing this up is Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase. Jamie Dimon says the next credit crisis could be worse than expected. Banking leaders are sounding alarms about rising consumer debt and tightening credit conditions. Dimon's comments highlight concerns about loan defaults, economic slowdown, and the ripple effects across financial markets. Now let's break that down. Okay, when he says he highlights the concerns about loan defaults, the loan defaults are getting worse and worse and worse. That is, now we have to go back and we have to think about this because it plays a major piece. I want you to remember when Joe Biden was trying to get rid of the student loan debts, the Supreme Court refused to let that happen, even though they had never done that before. And so now you've got people that's got these loans, and all these loans that they got, they cannot afford to pay the loans. So now the loans are going back into default. Now you got to remember, also at the top of this year, major companies across this country have done huge layoffs. And so people are not able to pay loans, pay bills, pay rent, buy groceries. There's an enormous amount of things that people cannot do. So with these people not being able to do those things, that means that this is debt on top of debt, on top of debt, on top of debt. And it's pretty soon what that means is it's going to sweep over into credit cards and everything else. Because if people cannot afford to live, how are they going to pay bills? This is what he's talking about with the concerns about the loan defaults. So now, you know, even with some people still trying to maintain, everybody's not going to be able to maintain. And again, I say to you, and I'm giving you this information, is because I need you guys to be able to make the decisions that's going to best benefit you and your family. Because if you don't understand what has taken place or what is taking place, then you too could be at a lost cause. I don't want you guys to be at a lost cause, but what I want you to do is I want you to be able to decipher the information and be able to determine how this is going to best benefit you. Because if they're talking about loan defaults being a problem now, and we're not actually at the point of ground zero, that means that something again is brewing, which is why you guys need to have this information, because you're going to have to be able to make this decision and be sound about it. Because if we get to the point where the economy does do this complete collapse, you guys are going to need to be ready. When we talk about the economic slowdown in this article, the economic slowdown is just that. Our economy is like slowing consistently. It was already slowing before the Iran war. The Iran war made it worse. And so what that means is that people are not really getting, there are things that should be happening that are not happening, but it's causing people to just be at this point where it's a standstill totally and completely. It's a slowdown. And believe me, the slowdown is getting worse because the prices are still rising. And rising prices are definitely not the things that we need to have right about now. The other part of this, when they talk about the ripple effects across financial markets, all of the markets have been unstable. They've been up and down. And I really think that only those people that have what they call money to continue to try to move throughout all of this, they're the ones that are doing this, that are still planning and moving forward with things that they think that they need to be doing or they want to do. But if you don't really have the money, I don't think the markets are a place that you want to play at. But again, that's a decision that only you guys can make, and you only can make this be what it's supposed to be. Let's take our shift over to world news. And I want to talk to you guys about the Iranians expect no post-war respite under military rule. Reports indicate that many Iranians fear continued hardship as military leadership consolidates power. Citizens express concerns about economic strain, political restrictions, and limited civil freedoms. Now, what they're talking about is, despite being in control of most of the oil reserve, these people are speaking of things that are happening to them within that economy because of the destruction that is from all the schools, some of the cities, how they've been bombed and just destroyed, and people just not being able to be as mobile or just move around and do the things that they normally would do. Also, this sounds like some of the credibility that was being said about what's happening with the citizens of Iran. Now, that situation, I don't know exactly how dire that is. I don't know if it's really at that point to where we can talk about, they're just not having the things that they need. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but what I will tell you is that if they're feeling this kind of crunch, and this is kind of like what I interpret from the article, is that there are things that are just not working for the people there as well. Iran's hardliners flex their muscle with a U-turn over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's leadership has reportedly shifted its stance on the Strait of Hormuz, signaling a more aggressive posture. Analyst says this reflects internal power struggles and the growing influence of hardline factions. Now, this story is reporting that the Iran National Guard was not happy with what supposedly, quote unquote, was an agreement with the U.S. about the Straits. Now, this is unclear, and I don't want to make this to be a false thing, but what this is saying is that they're not, they're all parties in the country are not on the same side as to what is happening with the Straits of Hormuz. Now, I don't know, there's contradictory stories, and I've heard several of those. I've read several of those. And, I've read stories that are saying that Iran has not, and again, I say has not agreed to the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And I've read stories that says that they have. So I still have not read that this was any kind of freedom or clearance to the U.S. But to my knowledge, and as of this point, as we're speaking right now today, the straits are open, but they're open only to certain countries. And America is not one of those. So I'm not sure as to what's meant by this. But whatever that is, I can say that I don't think that it's one of those things that's a real situation when it comes to Iran. So let's go over into U.S. politics. This is where you guys really need to pay an enormous amount of attention to these stories because in particular states, there's some things that people need to know, as well as when it comes to, just around the country in general. So the first story here is the judge sides with an Arizona election official in ruling with midterm implications. A recent court decision in Arizona has upheld the authority of a local election official, potentially influencing ballot procedures and dispute resolution in upcoming elections. Now, the thing about this is Arizona is one of those states that are different, like others, and they're also like these. Let's see, how do we explain this? Their procedures are one of those that's a little bit different. That's not really like what you see in the atypical state and how they do things. And so, with them having a ballot situation, this primarily is like it's going to give folk the opportunity to be on a ballot, but not have to identify a party. Now, that's going to be a little bit different because I know in most states when you do that, that's where you have a write-in campaign where people can write you in on a ballot. So with this, I'm not sure if this is going to be a bad thing or a good thing, but I think this is one of those things that for the people out in Arizona, this is going to be something to watch, because to see whatever this issue could possibly turn out to be, it's going to be one really big thing here, and we're really going to have to see how this turns out. New York Democrats look beyond battleground districts. Democratic leaders in New York are expanding their strategy, focusing not only on swing districts, but also on traditionally overlooked areas as they prepare for the 2026 midterms. Now, this is saying for those that are out there in New York, the Democrats are taking a real hard line at taking back all of their seats plus some. And I think now what they're showing is, some may say it's a little greedy, but this is where I can honestly say that this looks like a really good play for Democrats. And so what that means is that they're going into Republican districts and they're looking to flip seats throughout the entire city and the state, because they're saying that they're here to show the people how to rule and how to make things better for them. Now, the thing is, the people of New York, are you going to give them that opportunity to do this for you? Because this is pretty interesting, because Democrats around the nation, are putting forth an effort to try to gain the confidence of people to give them another chance at ruling and making things better for the people. So we're going to have to see how that turn out. So, all eyes are going to be glued on New York and all of the things that they have going on to see how this is going to turn out for this election. And 7 Democrats joined Republicans in opposing measure to block arms sales to Israel. A bipartisan group of lawmakers voted against a measure aimed at halting certain arms sales. The vote highlights divisions within the Democratic Party over foreign policy and U.S. involvement in Middle Eastern conflicts. Now, in case most of you guys have not heard this is the story about America trying to get arms over to Israel during this war conflict. Well, there are a lot of the American allies that have defected away from the U.S. during this conflict, have decided that they wanted nothing to do with this war. They wanted nothing to do with the U.S. and Israel as they're doing this, and they are totally wiping their hands of it, because they don't believe that this is a reason to cause a war. Now, so a little bit story underneath this is the U.S. was trying to get these weapons over to Israel because Iran has totally taken out their capabilities of actually defending themselves after starting this. And so, within our government here, that is in the House and the Senate, there's an enormous amount of lawmakers that are so against this war that they are fed up with the Israel situation. They're saying that they do not want the U.S. to give Israel not one other piece of armory because Israel is causing problems. You have some folk that are still in both the House and the Senate that don't believe that's true, and they still want to get weapons over to Israel. So now the tug of war is here in America over this situation. How this is going to turn out, we don't know. But I do know that one of the lead officials on the Democratic side that voted with the Republicans was Chuck Schumer. And so Chuck Schumer doing that is saying he wants Israel to get more arms so they can continuously fight against Iran and all of the other people that's there in the Middle East. That part is going to be, it remains to be seen, where we're going to see what turns out with this. But this is very interesting, and this is a story that I will say has got to continue to get traction, because we need to know what's going to be the end game here. And for the people of Georgia, Keisha Lance Bottoms goes on the record. Former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms has voiced support for a casino referendum and Medicaid expansion in Georgia, adding momentum to ongoing debates about economic development and healthcare access. Now, for me, this is a one-on, one-off. I'm here in Georgia, and I am one that's definitely not about this casino referendum, because normally casinos in areas that are considered to be urban areas, what those things do is they actually rob those people of their monies, because people are going on that hope and that prayer that they're going to hit that jackpot. And so it causes, well, it doesn't cause, but it leads to an addiction that keeps people coming and coming and coming and spending, and most likely losing all of their money, where they can't pay bills, they can't eat food. The survival rate is basically gone. Now, as far as that goes, I'm not for that. And I don't support that, but Keisha does. But the one thing that she does that I really like is she is calling for the expansion of healthcare. And so what, for those that don't understand how that goes, is that with the Medicaid expansion, basically goes into the exchange. So when you go into the exchange and you're paying your part, what happens is, as your people in your state go into that exchange, the prices for the healthcare goes down astronomically. And so as they go down, things get better. And that's what we're talking about. So I think that's a good thing, because there's several states, especially here in the Southeast, where pretty much all states are paying into the exchange, but the states here in the Southeast aren't actually expanding the Medicare to that extent that would allow the people in their state to have the cheaper health care under the Affordable Health Care Act. So that would be a good thing, and I think that would make it that much easier for everybody in the state. So let me go to a history and culture story for you guys. Stories of Black and Indigenous patriots come into focus. As the nation reflects on the American Revolution, new attention is being given to the contributions of Black and Indigenous patriots. Historians emphasize their critical roles in the fight for independence, reshaping our understanding of America's founding narrative. Now, what they're talking about is now there's more recognition for those that are Black and Indigenous, for the historical work and texts that they have provided to this country. So, despite the recognition, what does that mean for culture? What does that mean for the people that are underneath that title? That is from parents down to great grandchildren. How does that work? So we have to keep our eye on that and see what is this new thing that America is trying to do. Because, again, it's one of those things that, you as the people, you deserve to know what is happening here and why this is taking place. So, as we go through this, again, I want to say this because I want you guys to know that this is only about giving you guys this information so you know what is out there, what is happening, and for you to take this information and to use it to the best of your abilities. If you've got any questions or concerns, you can always reach out and you can shoot me messages here in the chat where we do comments and things of that nature, or you can send me an email at changingtrendsandtimes@gmail.com. Send me your questions and concerns. I promise to answer them and get them back to you as swiftly as possible. Even if you needed to chat about it, we can chat about it as well. So I just want to thank you guys for being here. For those of you that are watching and have got this news, I need you to take this news and I need you to use it to the best of your ability, because this is all about survival. So you can take this and you can follow it as deep as you need to get to. And again, you got questions or concerns, please shoot me an email at changingtrendsandtimes@gmail.com, and I promise to get back to you. So there's a few things I want to say to you guys as well before closing the show. And that is, we are going to be doing our very first episode tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time of CK Stories from the Heart. You'll see the promotions going throughout social media, and I ask you guys to please take the time and join us, and let's get into storytelling that connects us all and brings us all together. And I look forward to seeing you guys there, getting your comments and things of that nature. And we just continue to grow together, because that's what we're supposed to do as a community. And so just in closing, let me do this closing monologue, is as we close today's broadcast, remember this: the world is changing, but so are we. Information is power, and when our communities are informed, we are stronger, more resilient, and better prepared to shape the future. From the courage of the Tuskegee Airmen to the challenges of today's headlines, one truth remains: progress requires participation. Awareness is the first step. Action is the next. I'm Charles Zachary King, and this has been Changing Trends and Times. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay empowered. I want you all to have a great evening. Please come back and see us again next Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we have another round of news stories to get out to you guys for the benefit and the best of you. You all have a great evening. Thank you again, and we'll see you tomorrow on